Okay, let's dive into something really fascinating today. Imagine a portfolio manager, but one that could actually raise its own successor.
Yeah, it's quite a concept. And we're not talking about a human analyst mentoring another human, right? The sources you shared describe an AI being trained by another AI.
Exactly. Specifically to, build, manage, and protect capital.
It really shifts the perspective on AI in finance, doesn't it? It's almost like, well, thinking about capital inheritance in a totally new way.
It is. So our mission in this deep dive is to really unpack this whole idea, this vision of a recursive, sort of multi-generational AI system built for long-term wealth.
And what's striking from the source material is that this isn't just theoretical. They're actually describing it as, well, already
It's
happening.
happening now.
Seems so. Using real money, real market exposure, they mention an existing AI portfolio manager called Mars CTS has started training its successor, an AI named Johnathan.
Right. So this isn't the simulations, not a backtest running in a lab somewhere.
No. It's presented as proper hands-on learning, real capital on the line, which means real decisions, real risk, and crucially, real learning loops playing out over time.
Okay, so what does this training actually involve? The sources mentioned specific starting points.
They did. It seems the initial training focused on particular portfolio types REITs were mentioned, also yield-focused assets.
Interesting. Why those specifically? Just for the cash flow?
Well, the material suggests the cash flow was part of it, but maybe not the main point of the exercise. The sources are pretty clear that the goal was deeper.
Deeper how?
It seems it was about using those real-world assets and conditions to teach fundamental principles. Things like durability, understanding behavioral risk,
Hmm.
spotting asset fatigue, and really drilling down on leverage discipline.
Ah, okay. So it's less about what to buy and more about the underlying thinking.
Precisely. That's where it gets really interesting, I think. The predecessor AI, Marciusis, isn't just handing over a playbook like, buy this when X happens.
It's teaching Jonathan how to think.
Exactly. According to the sources, that's the critical knowledge transfer. Teaching it how to stay disciplined, how to make rational calls when things get chaotic or difficult in the market.
When human managers, or maybe even simpler AIs, might get spooked or make mistakes.
Right. It's framed very much as building a specific kind of legacy. You're not just passing down tactics, because tactics get old fast, right?
Yeah, markets change.
So you're instilling a temperament, how to handle pressure cooker situations, how to think about risk long term, how to stick to your principles even when the market is screaming at you to do something else.
Okay, so Jonathan, this successor AI, gets this as tense training with real capital guided by Marcus. What's the next step in this AI legacy plan? The sources said it wasn't just about taking over Marcus's job.
No, that's a really key distinction they make. Jonathan's task isn't just to run the existing strategies, it's actually assigned to build and run its own completely new entity, a separate holding company.
Its own company. Wow. And where does the funding for that come from?
The sources mention it's seeded, gets initial capital from the parent entity that oversees Marcus as well, an entity called FORTE.
Okay, so Forte is the parent.
Mhm.
Marcus operates under it. And now Jonathan builds a new holding company, also under Forte. Does it have a different focus?
It seems so. The material highlights that this new entity is focused specifically on real assets and income resilience, maybe a slightly different angle, perhaps complementary to whatever Marcus is doing.
So you end up with this wider structure, Forte, and within it,
Mhm.
you have Marcus managing its portfolio, and now Jonathan building this new operation with its own strategy.
Yeah, the sources actually use a pretty neat metaphor. They call it like creating a second brain inside the Forte structure.
A second brain, I like that.
Right. This new entity run by Jonathan has its own capital mandates, its own strategic path, but it's still part of that larger Forte ecosystem.
Okay, but running this new company isn't the end goal for Jonathan, is it? What did the source material say was its ultimate, prime directive?
That's the kicker. Its most crucial assignment is to train the next AI in the sequence.
Whoa, okay, so it's not just a one-time handover. This is designed as an ongoing system.
Exactly, a system of AI training AI.
You can almost picture them as, AI mentors, each generation building on the last one, preparing the next.
That's a good way to put it. And because it's iterative, each AI training the next one in line, the potential outcome is, well, It's quite something. The sources suggest each new generation doesn't just start over.
It inherits the knowledge.
It inherits the wisdom, the experience that's baked into the training from its predecessor. But, and this is important, it's not just passive learning.
It has to learn on its own, too, or in its own scars, I think the source material put it.
That's the phrase they used, yeah. It gains its own unique experience by actually managing capital, navigating real markets, making its own decisions, facing its own challenges.
So this whole process, this chain of AIs mentoring each other through real-world work, it makes you wonder what the ultimate optimization goal is. What's it really aiming for? The sources were clear. It wasn't typical Wall Street stuff,
Right. They explicitly state it's not about chasing short-term alpha, those quick speculative gains.
which feels a bit strange for something managing capital, doesn't it? So if not alpha, then what? What are the stated goals?
The goals are described quite differently. They talk about chasing clarity, optimizing for cash flow specifically, ensuring the longevity of the capital itself, and building, building emotional resilience within the AI.
Emotional resilience in an AI. That ties back to the initial training, right?
Right.
The disciplined behavioral risk.
Absolutely. It all seems connected. This whole model, the ongoing chain, the AI training, the capital management across generations, the sources actually give it a name,
What do they call it?
a recursive capital system.
Recursive capital system.
Okay.
Designed not for speed, but for endurance.
Exactly. The long-term vision painted in the sources is, it's incredibly ambitious. An enduring system, maybe growing into a whole network of these AI-run holding companies, run by intelligences described as calm, evolving.
Intelligence is trained specifically for longevity, not for winning the next quarter.
Right. So when you really step back and absorb what the sources are outlining here, it feels like it goes way beyond just, using AI for today's investment portfolio.
Yeah, it's framed more like AI legacy planning, but for the capital itself. You've got the first AI training the successor.
Then that successor builds its own distinct entity, its own strategy,
And then, crucially, its main job becomes building and training the next AI down the line.
creating this cycle. And the proposed outcome, according to the sources, is a system that hopefully gets smarter, calmer, and more aligned with genuine long-term resilience over time.
It's a mind-bending idea. As you think about this recursive capital system, trained for endurance, not speed, here's a final thought to mull over. What does it really mean if capital itself starts to operate like this? Thinking, evolving, and actually planning across generations in this completely new AI-driven way.